Here's the way to think of it. It's like, think of a plum tree. Plum tree has very interesting characteristics of it. Again, you go back to the seed, you know the seed inside of a plum. Is there plum essence in a plum seed? Is the essence of plumness in a plum seed? Has to be, doesn't it? So you put the seed into the ground and you plant it, and all of a sudden it starts breaking open and roots develop and they go under the ground. Is there plum essence in the roots? Isn't there? There has to be, doesn't there? Something in there is going to create plums. And then those roots grow and spread, and all of a sudden a tree starts sprouting up above the surface. And there's a trunk. Is there plum essence in the trunk? Yeah. And then the trunk gets higher, and there are branches. And then the branches develop leaves. And then the leaves develop blossoms. And then the blossoms develop little buds. And then the little buds turn into little tiny plums. And then you let them stay on there for a while, and then they turn into purple plums or green plums or whatever their essence is. Now, we don't say, when we observe this phenomenon, that these plums showed up from the spirit essence world of plumness. Do we? We don't do that. We just look at the tree and we observe it and we watch the whole thing and we realize that plum essence is in all of the thing, and we stand back and we watch it and we say, you know, the damn thing just plums. It just plums like an apple tree. It just apples. So too are we like this. We are not separate from that spirit world. That separation is the thing we got to get out of us. It's like someone could come back and look at the whole planet and say there's vegetation, there's rocks, there's minerals, there's rain, there's sunshine. Look at this thing from a distance. Look at it. Just watch it. And what happens? You watch it and you watch it and you watch it, and the damn thing just peoples. It just peoples. That's the way Alan Watts put it. It just simply peoples. We don't come into this world. We grow out of this world. We are a part of all of it, and we can never escape it. And once you know this, once you get this, that you weren't placed in here from this spirit world, any more than plums were, or apples, or cockroaches, or anything. We are all in this thing called the environment together. And this divineness, this spirituality, this higher consciousness is a part of all of it. And we have to know that rather than separating it out. This world, that world, this world. Because our senses tell us that before you're here, you're nowhere. And after you leave here, you're gone. But our senses are not reliable at all. They misguide us all the time. They tell us that we're sitting here right now. And they say, you're sitting there still. You're not moving. That's what our senses tell us, don't we? We don't think we're moving. You think you're spinning right now? But yet you are, aren't you? Aren't we turning and spinning and hurling through space and all of that? Our senses tell us all of this stuff. It's not true. So we don't want to rely upon our senses. That's the intellect. We want to rely upon our heart and have this knowing that my essence is in every single aspect of myself. And that in order to transcend the prison of the duality of the physical plane, I go to my source. And when I go to my source, I get quiet. The place where I cannot further be divided. You see, our egos divide us up. We divide ourselves up by our races, by our sexes, by our age, by our appearances, by our economic class, by our languages. And then we divide ourselves up further within the country by our communities, by our cities, by our states. And we divide ourselves further by our schools and our religious orientations and our food preferences and the shape of our eyes And then we divide our individual selves up on the basis of what my mother thinks of me and what my father thinks of me and what I used to be and what I ought to be and what I maybe could become but I can't because. And we keep dividing ourselves and dividing ourselves and dividing ourselves. That's the work of the ego. What we want to do is come up with a new symbol. Get rid of the bulldozer and come up with a new symbol. It's called a hologram. I have a definition of a hologram. A hologram is a three-dimensional photographic image obtained with laser beams. A three-dimensional photographic image obtained with laser beams. The essence of a hologram, you have them on your Visa cards and MasterCards and American Express. Let's give them all their own plug. A hologram, the interesting thing about a hologram is that you take one tiny little sliver off of an object and you project a laser beam through it, and it projects what? The whole, doesn't it? It projects the whole thing. You take just one little tiny slice of it, like that, and you put this laser beam through it, and you look at it, and in every tiny infinitesimal piece of a hologram, the whole becomes projected with a laser beam. That's what a hologram is. Every individual part contains the whole. Now, what an interesting notion that is. Think of humanity as like a 6 billion piece hologram. And we take one piece out, and we put a laser beam through it, and we see all of humanity. That's what manifesting is like. You have to be able to see yourself as an individualized expression of the whole of it all, and not see yourself as separate from anything in this environment. Now you start thinking about that thing I asked you to think about what would you like to manifest, and you realize that it is part of the hologram as well. Everything on the planet is part of the hologram. Now what you do is you say to yourself from your source, from your quiet space, the place that can't be further divided. You can't divide silence. You can't divide God. Gandhi said, in heaven there is no religion. Thank God. You can't divide spirituality. You can't organize spirituality. You can't divide any of this. You go to the source. When you go to the source, you go to zero. And from the perspective of the source, you look out on the physical plane and you put your attention on what it is that you would want to manifest, knowing that you are not separate from it, never have been, never could be. Even from the moment of your conception to the moment of your death, your life is not like this temporary experience between two eternal blacknesses. It's just like a parenthesis in eternity. But it doesn't begin here and end here. It is always. And so is everything in your environment. Just try detaching yourself from something in your environment. Just try describing yourself. Just try being for a moment separate from your environment. As a physical being, you can't do it. You need the air. You need the ground you walk on. You need the gravity that holds you down. But go to your source. And from the position of the source, you create all the light, as the sun does. Indeed, you're not an organism in an environment. You are an organism-environment, or an environ-no organism. Thank you very much.